Outside, it was growing dark. It was getting close to a chilly autumn evening. Chad noticed his wife eating while on the way and looking at her watch all the time. "Mina, why are you rushing off again?" he said. "I was invited to visit by my friend Julia. Do you recall that I mentioned that we shared a home at the orphanage? After a challenging surgery, she requested assistance with some housework. I couldn't refuse," Mia said, glancing pleadingly at her husband. "Are you her servant, Mia? I don't get you," Chad shot back. "I won't be gone for long, darling." After saying, "I'll be back soon," Mia hurried out of the house a short while later. Chad's father was a general. Mia was an orphan from the orphanage, and his parents did not want their son to marry her. They had long anticipated that Chad would pursue a career in diplomacy and had hoped he would wed Melina, the daughter of a prominent local merchant. According to his father, Chad had no problem marrying Melina for economic purposes prior to meeting Mina. Chad, however, preferred a career in business over diplomacy. Melina's father, Mr. Rendon, convinced him to do so. Chad had an excellent education overseas. He was quite intelligent and had a great memory. Mr. Rendon took it upon himself to teach his prospective son-in-law the fundamentals and hazards of business in order to refine his knowledge in practice. In addition to providing guidance, the man contributed his own funds to a brand new collaborative initiative with Chad. Thus, the company started to expand. One shopping complex after another opened, and as earnings increased, they went into the hands of businessmen. Mr. Rendon loved to say, "Well, son-in-law, soon we will be related not only financially but also by blood," with a happy smile. He thought Chad would be the ideal husband for his pampered daughter, Melina. However, the young pair did not share any affection. "Well, daughter, don't worry. The fairy story of love was created by losers, and they are deluding themselves with it. You're a perfect fit with Chad. Regarding love, you're youthful, attractive, and driven. One must bear what cannot be remedied." But Mr. Rendon's prophecies were not intended to materialize. When Chad happened to run across a provincial girl named Mia in the movie theater, everything was completely upended. She rented a tiny room in a shared apartment and worked at a factory. Even at their first meeting, Chad's heart was quickly filled with love. Why did he find Mia so attractive? Maybe it was her sensitivity, modesty, meekness, kindness, and sincerity, all of which were totally lacking in Melina. After just 1 week of dating, Chad fell head over heels in love with Mia and knew he couldn't live without her. The feeling was mutual. Mia was sure that she had met the man of her dreams, the one she constantly read about in romance novels, and now it had happened in real life. After several meetings, Chad proposed to Mia without telling his parents. When his parents found out what had happened, they were emotionally shocked. "Are you insane?" they screamed at him. "Are you going to exchange Melina for this orphan without family? How will we face Mr. Rendon? He invested so much in you. Marrying this pauper is a disaster for everything, both business and normal life." But despite his parents' desperate objections, Chad did not cancel his decision to marry Mia. His love for her was 1,000 times stronger than his parents' attacks. Mr. Rendon reassured Chad's parents, saying, "Come on, don't be silly. He'll get married and then get divorced, I bet." He dreamed of a beautiful future for his daughter and would do everything to reunite Chad and Melina again. No guests attended Mia and Chad's wedding. Chad's parents barely crossed the threshold of the registry office and did not stay there for more than 10 minutes. But the young couple was happy together despite everything. Chad rented a spacious apartment in a new building, and life flowed calmly and joyfully like a family. Chad and Mia seemed to dissolve into each other and were already thinking about having a child. Their peaceful life was suddenly interrupted by a phone call. "Mia? Hello. You don't recognize me. I'm Scott, your brother. I returned from prison 3 days ago." Mia froze. She knew how much Chad's relatives hated her and was afraid to reveal the whole truth about her family, saying only that she lived in an orphanage. Mia hid that her mother was in prison for causing serious bodily harm to her stepfather, and that she died there. Mia also did not reveal that her brother was also in prison for robbery. The girl was sure that if Chad's relatives knew about this, they would never have allowed her to marry Chad. And now, this call from the past. Mia, why are you silent? Maybe you're not happy. I heard you married a millionaire. You probably have a lot of money. Can't you share with your own brother? I need a little bit. I'd also need a corner to live for a short time. I'll look around and return the money right away. Mia did not dare to refuse her brother and quietly said, I'll think about how to help you. Since she and Chad got married, she left her job at the factory at her husband's request. Instead of a salary, Mia now received money from her husband on a personal card. She had been supporting her wayward brother Scott with this money for over a month. She even rented a small apartment in an old building for him. What's wrong, Maya? Can't you buy new dresses for yourself? Chad asked her, noticing that his wife was not updating her wardrobe at all. Why spend so much right away? I have a lot of normal clothes, Maya evasively replied. Chad smiled. You're right, Mia. You're beautiful in any clothes. The only thing that worried Chad was his wife's frequent departures from home, especially in the last month. And today, she had reason to leave the house again because her friend Julia asked for help. Chad knew Mia to be a kind and compassionate person who cared about the troubles of others, but he never expected her to go to such lengths. In fact, once again, Mia had gone to great lengths to help her brother by buying him groceries. She knew that if she gave him money, he would spend it on alcohol. Mia felt heavy-hearted. She knew her husband did not approve of her absences, and she was risking losing him. She tried to push away the negative thoughts, but they kept returning with renewed strength. Finally, Mia promised herself that she would tell her husband about her strange trips the next day. Little did she know, Melina's relatives did not accept Chad's decision to live with Mia. In fact, Mr. Rendon was hatching a cunning plan against Mia. He wanted to frame her for infidelity, and thereby cause a divorce between Chad and Mia. Mr. Rendon's driver, Paul, accidentally saw Mia on the streets with an unknown man. Just in case, he took a couple of photos and reported everything to his boss. Well done, Paul. Excellent. You deserve a bonus from me, rejoiced Mr. Rendon. I'm lucky I don't even have to come up with anything. The fish itself swam into the net. Paul, work a little more as a private detective. Watch Mia carefully. Where does she go when she goes out on the street? Maybe she's visiting someone. The driver, of course, was happy to earn extra money and immediately agreed. That fateful evening, Paul followed Mia and recorded the address of the house and apartment. He passed this information on to his boss. Thank you, Mr. Rendon said, even more pleased. The next day, as soon as Chad entered the office, Mr. Rendon told him everything. Take a look at who your wife is spending time with. Mr. Rendon sneered. I think it's just a coincidence. Nothing more, Chad replied calmly. Don't think about it. Just check it out for yourself. I have the address, said Mr. Rendon, handing Chad a piece of paper. Chad refused to believe what was happening, the doubts about his wife's fidelity. However, the words of his failed father-in-law became a thorn in his heart. The dull pain in his chest didn't go away for several days. Finally, Chad decided to secretly go to the specified address without telling Mia. On the day Mia decided to tell Chad the truth, he did not come home from work on time. Mia, I'll be delayed for a little while today. I have a lot of work to do. Yes, of course, dear, and I'll go to the store. Do you remember you complained about my clothes? So, I'll take a walk and have a look, Mia said. Again, Chad was completely confused. He did not believe the photos or the words, as they could all be fake. Of course, he had to see everything with his own eyes. After some time, Chad disguised himself as a pizza delivery man and went to the specified address. Who is it? Asked a rough male voice. Pizza delivery. Please open up. I didn't order anything. Please open up. Then you'll make a note of the refusal. The door creaked open. At the doorstep stood a young man with an unkempt appearance. emanating the smell of alcohol. Chad entered the room, where the man shouted, "What do you think you're doing?" Chad paid him no attention. Instead, he saw the girl standing by the window. She turned around. "Mia? How could you? I trusted you and you." "Chad, I'll explain everything. Please stay here," begged the girl. However, Chad just shook his head and rushed down the stairs onto the street. Something unimaginable was happening in his soul. He felt like life was over. The overwhelming emotions almost caused him to have an accident. An hour later, Mia came home and tearfully begged her husband to listen to her. She said that Scott was her own brother, but Chad didn't believe a single word. He decided to end his marriage once and for all and break up with Mia completely. Although he loved his wife, he was ready to forgive everything except infidelity. "Get your suitcase and leave. I'll announce the divorce," Chad said in a cold, unfamiliar voice. Mia quickly threw a few things into the suitcase and slowly walked away. Her body didn't obey, and her legs became like cotton wool. Behind her, she heard the sound of a door slamming shut. The girl sat down on a bench, hugged her head with her hands, and burst into tears. A phone call brought her back to reality. "It's Chad. Chad. He's changed his mind." Mia cried out. But unfortunately, it wasn't him. It was her friend Julia. "Hey, Mia. How are you?" Julia cheerfully chatted. Mia couldn't take it and cried even harder into the phone. "Hey, are you home? I'll be there in 10 minutes." Since childhood, Mia always shared her most intimate emotional experiences with Julia. This time was no exception. "Yes, you messed up everything, and your little brother. That scoundrel," thought involved. "Mia, don't beat yourself up like this. Maybe everything will be okay. Chad must understand that there was no infidelity. If you have nowhere to live now, move in with me. I live alone. The apartment is small but cozy." Julia kept talking and speaking with her inherent optimism, trying to lift Mia's spirits. But Maya refused to accept what had happened. She didn't lose hope and waited for her beloved. She was sure that Chad would come for her and take her back, naively, almost childishly. But the girl believed with all her heart in the fairy tale she had invented. Days passed one by one, and with each day, Mia's financial situation worsened. Even small expenses seemed catastrophic as the remnants of the money given to her by Chad melted away. "Julia, I need to find a job," Mia said, realizing that waiting for her lost happiness wouldn't fill her stomach. "Yes," Julia replied. "I agree, my friend. We can't go on like this for much longer." Julia worked as a nurse in a hospital, but her salary was barely enough to pay for their apartment and groceries. Meanwhile, Mia wandered around the city searching for work, receiving rejection after rejection. She was particularly hurt when her former factory turned her away after the HR manager found out that she was no longer the wife of a millionaire. Desperate, Mia sat down on a bench in the park and watched the passersby with tearful eyes. A gray-haired man of respectable age approached her and asked, "Miss, are you okay?" Mia silently nodded and told the first person she met that she really needed a job. "If you like, come to our community with me. I heard from our concierge that they need a janitor. Do you agree?" "Yes, of course." As a janitor, Mina worked tirelessly. Within a few days, she rubbed large blisters, but it didn't bother her. At least she had her own piece of bread and wouldn't be a burden on Julia. But one day, Maya suddenly felt sick and dizzy, barely making it to the bench. After a few seconds, the malaise went away, and Maya returned to work. In the evening, the short attacks repeated. "Dear, something's not right." "Are you pregnant? Perhaps." Julia suspected trouble. Mia was horrified at the thought, but soon her fears were confirmed. "Physically, you probably can't work anymore," Julia said. Even she, an optimist in life, was upset. Where could they get the money to support the child? However, she tried not to show her gloomy mood to her friend. Mia was thinking about something else entirely. "I need to tell Chad about the baby. He'll find out and be happy, and we'll be together again." Julia seemed to read her mind. Why should you be the only one carrying this burden? The child has a father, and he should also be involved in its life. I agree, Julia. I just need to see Chad. Everything will be the same as before. But Chad's mobile phone had not been answered since their breakup, so Mia mustered up the courage and went to his parents' house to find out where Chad could be found. Chad's mother opened the door and immediately attacked Mia, not letting her say a word. How dare you come here, you ungrateful girl? You deceived my son. What more do you want? Mia was stunned by the greeting but found the strength to respond. I need to talk to Chad and tell him he will be a father and you will be a grandmother. What? Chad's mother turned purple, her voice trembling with indignation. Tell your lover you have the child, then deal with him yourself. Tears welled up in Mia's eyes, and she could barely hold them back. Anyway, if you came here, take this. Chad's mother handed Mia a few sheets of fine paper. What's this? Mia asked, confused. Divorce papers. You won't have to go to court, the woman replied indifferently. Also, Chad will soon marry a girl who is truly worthy of him. So don't come here anymore. Mia didn't remember how she made it to Julia's house. Everything was a blur. Today, she buried her last chance for a happy life. All that was left was a ridiculous existence. What are you talking about, Mia? What ridiculous existence? Julia encouraged her friend. But money? What will we live on? Mia worried. As a single mother, the state will pay you. And at work, maybe I'll take on 2 jobs. We'll live. We'll raise the baby no worse than others. Julia supported her friend as best she could. In reality, she didn't believe her own words and was no less worried than Mia. But it was Julia's support that gave Mia the strength not to fall into depression. Despite her friend's persistent urging to give up work, Mia worked as a janitor until almost the very end of her pregnancy. On New Year's Eve, she gave birth to her daughter, whom the friends decided to name Sarah. Mia and Julia adored the little girl, but it was hard to provide for themselves and the child. One day, there was a knock on the door, and Scott was standing on the doorstep. Hi. Forgive me. I know you think I'm a monster. Because of me, you lost your husband. The people change, and that changed for the better. You know, I'm not rich at all, but I'll help as much as I can. Mia couldn't refuse his help, and she had no choice. Thus, 3 years passed. They were difficult but, at the same time, happy for Julia and Mia. They raised Sarah together and tried to deal with life's troubles together. Scott often came to visit them and help as much as he could. Mina forgave him a long time ago. One day, Scott was walking on a crosswalk, intending to go to Mia and Julia's house. Suddenly, he heard the screech of brakes, and a car stopped just centimeters away from him. Excuse me, are you all right? Thank God. For the first time in my life, I did not notice a pedestrian, said a frightened man approaching Scott. Didn't you see me? Did you forget your eyes at home? Scott grumbled, dissatisfied. He felt like he had seen the face of this driver before but couldn't remember where. Consider it so. I can compensate you for moral damage, said the man, staring at the stranger. Suddenly, he realized that it was the same man he saw at the apartment with Mia. Do you know Mia? He asked loudly. Of course I do. I'm her brother. You shouldn't have left Mia. You ruined her life for no reason. Ruined her life? Yes, that's right. I did. And not just for her, but for myself as well. Memories flooded Chad. He had met Mia, fallen in love against his parents' wishes, broken up because of a ridiculous incident, and regretted it ever since. His marriage to Melina didn't work out. Melina preferred a reckless lifestyle, spending her father's and husband's money. There was not a drop of love in his marriage, and after 6 months, despite her father's pleas, they divorced. Chad was afraid to admit to himself that he couldn't forget Mia. He had driven her away, but love cannot be driven out of the heart. It still belonged to Mia. He didn't have the courage to admit his guilt for all these years. He was guilty of not listening to Mia and not giving her a chance to explain everything. Guilty of not meeting with her when Mia asked for it. He was guilty of not looking for Mia all these years, although not a day went by without him thinking about her. What is this? Late remorse? Probably. What if it's still possible to get her back? I will definitely do it now. When, if not now? Chad thought. He felt like he was hit by an electric shock. Tell me, where does Mia live? Please, I really need to see her. Where have you been before? When Mia and Julia were freezing and hungry in a cold apartment? When Mia, pregnant, spent all day cleaning the yard? Yeah, you were enjoying life with your millions, said Scott angrily. Chad, taken aback, replied, I didn't know anything. But Scott couldn't calm down. You didn't know anything? Oh yeah, that's indeed a good excuse. But maybe you just didn't want to know. Give me the address, please. Chad was in such a state of emotion that he did not notice Scott's insulting taunts. Calming down a little, Scott scribbled it on paper. Take it. Perhaps not everything is lost for you yet. Chad ran up the stairs to Julia's apartment. However, the girl responded shortly to his heart-wrenching monologue. Don't break the drama into 2 acts in front of me. You hurt Mia. Hurt her badly. So it's up to her to decide whether you should be in her life or not. By the way, she should be back from work right now. At that moment, the door opened, and Mia, emaciated and grown up, entered the apartment. Chad couldn't take his eyes off her. The same bottomless, infinitely familiar eyes, fragile shoulders, tender hands. Mia. His Mia. All the prepared speeches flew out of Chad's head, and he could only whisper softly, Forgive me. He looked into her eyes and understood, no, this is not the end. This is the beginning of something important and new in their lives.